Thank you so much for being here today, Katie.
Yeah, I was really excited about it. I was like kind of prepping for it yesterday, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to do this.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It's like starting to become real. Like I've been kind of planning this for so long. It's like weird that it's actually happening.
Yeah, it takes a lot to do a podcast. Like because I had started one a little while ago, and it's a lot more work than you'd ever expect.
But yeah, so this episode will be talking about energy work and tending to your body, along with finding your purpose and how sustainability ties into all of that. So, kind of getting started, could you share a little bit about you, kind of what you do, how you spend your time, and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Katie. I do energy healing. I also am a psychic, so I do psychic advising. What else do I do? I don't know, all kinds of things. I'm also an artist. I teach energy healing as well and intuitive development, and I work with a lot of empaths and highly sensitive people, just helping them kind of deal with the day-to-day life in a world that is not really built for people who are super sensitive. And my journey getting to this point, I don't know. Well, obviously it's been my whole life. I think something that's, been leading up to this, but,
Right.
I've always been a very sensitive person. I've always been, pretty intuitive, always wanted to help people in some way or, find a way that I could be in service to others. Whether that was like, at some point I wanted to be a nutritionist, other points I wanted to be a psychologist. I mean, like I always like had kind of these different interests. So when I was in my early 20s, I went through a really rough time. I was in this abusive relationship, and it was healing from that was really difficult for me. I had some really, really low points. But as I was working through all of that, I started to think, wow, like I really want to help people who have gone through similar things. I want to share the things that I've learned that have worked for me and be able to be of service to other people. And throughout that healing process, I started to get energy healing from different practitioners, going to see psychic mediums and stuff like that. And it had such a profound impact on me. And I had this one session with a practitioner who ended up being my Reiki teacher. And it was, at the time I was trying to listen to my intuition more and listen to kind of those like messages that I was getting. And I was, during this session, I just had this message of like, you should be doing this for yourself and you should be doing this every day. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to take a class and see what happens. So I took a class, and then it just felt like it felt so right for me and like in alignment. And I just went and I took the other levels. I was like, okay, I want to not only do this for myself, but for other people. And then everything just kind of snowballed. That was over the past couple of years. It's just like things just sort of snowballed and fell into place. And I got to where I am at this point. And I think I like really attribute a lot of it to like going through those difficult times and being able to like kind of work through it and go, okay, I want to be in service to other people. And then that sort of getting me to the point where it's like, okay, now I kind of know what tools I have or what I can use to work with other people that way. As far as, like things I like to do in my free time or, what kind of things interest me. I mean, I am very interested in the spirit realm and meditation. I spend a lot of time, communicating with my spirit guides, developing my intuition more deeply. I love gardening. I love being outside. I love hiking. Cooking is a big thing for me too. Really anything with like plants. I think like and I guess, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but my connection to the earth is like a big part of my spirituality too. So like, I think kind of that whole, being sustainable and respecting the earth and taking care of it, like really ties into everything too. And is really healing for me as well. So a little bit about about me and how I got to where I'm at now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, I've definitely found that when you kind of get into one thing, you realize like I don't know, it kind of leads to doing other things too.
Hmm.
Like even just like being really into gardening, then it's like, okay, yeah, now I want to like grow things that I can cook. And then it makes you really into cooking. And just all of these things definitely relates to each other.
Hmm.
Um, and you already kind of touched on this a little bit too, but what is, you know, along with like feeding yourself really well, like what does kind of tending to your body, mind, and spirit really look like to you? And, in addition to, taking time to meditate.
Yeah. For me, it's like it comes down a lot to like mindset, but also just like finding little things throughout the day that I can do to take care of myself. Because I'm not really a person that does well with structure. Like if I say, okay, you have to get up at like 6 a.m. and spend an hour meditating and doing all these different things, like I'll never do it. I'll just be like, the idea of having to commit to something like for an hour, like every day just seems so overwhelming. So for me, it's like, I have to have a good mindset and I have to find ways to incorporate little acts of self-care and taking care of myself throughout the day. So for me, that's like, like finding ways to honor my needs or like body's needs or my energy levels for that day. And like that might mean one day I don't work at all and then the next day I work 12 hours. Or it might mean that I do a little bit and then I take a break and then I do work a little bit more. Or it might mean that I leave a lot of flexibility in my schedule, and I'm self-employed, so I have the beautiful ability to do that,
Yeah.
to like sort of pick and choose what I want to work on based on how I'm feeling that day. That's also like making sure I cook myself some good food, like we were talking about, that I get outside a little bit each day in some capacity, that I, carve out a little bit of time to like do some just kind of like physical self care. Like last night, I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself a pedicure and a facial. That like
Mm.
even just kind of little basic things like that is there. It's really important for me because it just makes me feel good. So it's like having a mindset of, okay, I'm going to honor whatever I'm feeling and like take breaks when I need to instead of pushing through. I'm going to honor like the things that make me feel good and make time for those things, all that stuff is like really important to me. And then as far as just kind of, again, there's little things throughout the day. It's like whenever I think about it, taking a deep breath and then just like relaxing my jaw and like relaxing my belly and relaxing my pelvic floor and just like taking just 10 to 15 seconds to stop thinking and relax my body. It has like a huge impact. And I just do that periodically throughout the day. So it's just like kind of little, for me, I'm majorly into little things throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that really ties into, listening to your intuition and just like learning how to like know what you're actually like what your body's telling you. Like, has there ever been times in your life where you like weren't really able to listen to yourself as well?
For sure. And I mean, I think the other thing is that we live in like in the US, especially in kind of Western society, it's like push through, keep working, you have your 9 to 5, like you have all these things that sort of you have to do on a day-to-day basis. And you're sort of just supposed to push through and ignore your body's cues that it's time to slow down or stop, or you're taking care of other people or whatever. And I'm definitely prone to being like to overworking or being a workaholic or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through a lot of times in my life where I have ignored my body's cues and not honored my own needs. And as a result, pushed way too hard, gotten sick, not been well mentally or physically, pushed myself into a dark place, that kind of thing. So yeah, there's definitely been times where it's like I've gone way overboard and I haven't honored what I needed. So
Mm-hmm.
that, like I was talking about, that honoring my needs, like that's a big thing. And like you said, it is very intuitive to just go, okay, what is my body needing right now? Or what is my soul needing right now? What does my mind need right now to feel good? And then
Mm-hmm.
going, okay, that's what it needs. So I better make some time to make that happen. And just kind of honoring that depending on how you're feeling any given day.
Yeah. And I found like even it can start with just doing really simple things like figuring out what you
Mhm.
want to wear for that day. Like,
Yes.
what is my soul really telling me like I would feel comfortable in today? Like, I think it really just, yeah, it starts with doing simple things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love doing that. It's like, what slice of pizza do I want to eat off of this pizza? Or like,
Yeah.
what tea do I want to have out of this like box of the different types of teas? Like, just
Hmm.
sort of going with less in the rational, logical mind and more in the intuitive, like feeling and sensing mind, which is a totally different way of being than I think most of us are brought up to live our lives.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Like, I think we're so used to kind of just doing what we think is expected of us, or
Mhm.
even just like getting, like, I get in sort of these traps of like, I don't know, like I'll start to like binge on something. Like if I've been eating really well for a few days, then I'll like binge on like eating like a bunch of cookies or something. I mean, that's not what other people are expecting of me, obviously, but I just feel like even sometimes it's like it's still hard to like because there's like these coping mechanisms that I think are built into all of our habits.
Mhm.
So it's still can be, it's definitely a practice. And every day, like you said earlier, like every day is different. Some days you need to just let yourself like, maybe do something
Some
that
days
wouldn't
you
is
need to
great.
binge the cookies.
Exactly.
And that's okay too. That's important too.
Yeah, for sure. How would you define energy work and what does that like look like, like if you're whether you're doing it on yourself or you're working with somebody else, like what does that kind of entail?
Yeah. So energy work in general, or energy healing in general, is you're kind of working with the unseen. You're working with like frequency and vibration. And it's like the best way to describe it is just sort of it's like life force energy, creation energy. Think about whatever energy it was that created the universe that we live in, or that
Mm.
makes two, atoms like vibrate together, that keeps us alive in our bodies. There's an unseen force there. And so when we do energy work or energy healing, we're sort of working with or playing with or manipulating that to facilitate some type of outcome, usually some type of healing state or something like that. Um, you're making small adjustments and utilizing energy to like create a state of well-being for somebody else or for yourself.
Mm.
And the most common type of energy healing is Reiki, which is Japanese energy healing. And in Reiki, you're channeling earth energy and spirit energy. So it's not necessarily like working with your own energy, it's working with the energy of the heavens or spirit and of the earth, allowing that to flow through you for your own healing, or to flow through you and into somebody else for healing somebody else, a recipient.
Mm.
Um, so in my practice, it's very intuitive. Like one session will be completely different from another session. It depends on the person that I'm working with, what they have going on. I could work with the same person 2 days in a row and I have a completely different session each time, just depending on where they're at that day and what they want to work on. But like kind of as a general rule, when I'm doing sessions for other people, my practice includes a lot of mediumship, allowing someone's spirit guides or my own that have helped me facilitate with sessions to show me what needs to be worked on. I sort of followed that. I followed their lead. And I don't really consider myself to be the one doing the healing. It's more like I am holding space and facilitating the healing so that the spirit realm, the earth energy can work on this person, and this person can be healing themselves, really. Um, so when I'm receiving energy healing, that's also different too, because that depends
Mm.
on the day and how I'm doing and the practitioner and all those kinds of things. It's very flexible. But I think kind of, again, like as a general rule, sometimes you have sessions that feel very relaxing. Sometimes you have sessions that put you to sleep. Sometimes it's, you feel like everything is just so right in the world. You're like, okay, everything could just explode and I could die right now and I would be happy because everything feels so good. Then you have other sessions that are more intense where it's like you're having different physical sensations, hot or cold changes in pressure, changes in like, maybe you feel tingly in certain places, muscle spasms, twitching, maybe some discomfort. Other times it's like emotional stuff coming up, or you're having kind of visions or thoughts coming through or messages coming through. So it's like really runs the gamut just depending on where you're at and your practitioner and what the focus is and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that sort of change. But I think too, as a practitioner, it's like when you're facilitating a healing session, it's like, it's very meditative too. So like if somebody was to be, facilitating a healing session, it's kind of like you sort of step out of yourself a little bit. And it's like you're stepping into the spirit realm, which has a totally different feeling too. I don't know if we should get into that or not, but
it's up to you. We could a little bit. It's always fascinating to me to talk about that stuff because like, it's really interesting when you sort of have the intention of like, okay, like I'm going to really take this time to just go to this other place. And it's just, I don't know. It's like, it's so, and I think you really have to be open to it as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's definitely like a mindset of being open and of not having an expectation is like huge. Like, so for me to just be like, okay, whatever comes through is going to come through today, and not putting pressure on it or having expectations. But, when I'm sort of connecting in the spirit realm and connecting with people's guides or my own guides, it's like there's kind of a mindset shift or like an energetic shift. It's like you're sort of stepping out of the physical and into this other realm that just feels more dreamy or something. Like the best way I think to describe it is almost like daydreaming. It's all about like the way that you process information is different. It's less like, okay, this is physical reality. I'm like touching this thing. I feel this thing on my body. I'm like seeing this information, whatever. It's more about feeling and sensation. And then you just kind of process things. There's like this understanding and knowing that happens. And then you have to sort of backtrack and go, okay, I got this like glimpse or this understanding that happened right away. But now my brain has to like process it so I can like actually explain it in English language or however you're communicating, which is totally different. But for me, I do a lot of writing down for channeling. So for me, it's like I might get the essence of the message that I have for somebody that's coming through right away, but then I might have to write down like 2 or 3 paragraphs before I like kind of figure out exactly how to explain it or like what the like actual truth or that little like nugget of a message is that's within that. But yeah, I love it so much, but it is definitely not the easiest thing to explain or talk about.
No, not at all. But just with these, like mentioning, like writing stuff down, that made me think of like whenever, I like to write and like, I'm into like writing poetry and stuff like that. So I've kind of like, the more that I've practiced, like kind of connecting with my intuition and like going, like experimenting with like meditating in that realm. Like then when I meditate, like when I'm writing, it's like, and I've heard other people use this term, like a spiritual download. Like, it's like, there's like words just coming out and I'm like, I don't even know like where this is coming from, but this is just coming out. Yeah. Like, have you ever experienced that with like some of the art that you create?
Oh, well, not so much with art, because I have kind of a different way of going about art, but I definitely do that when I'm channeling. So, and I call that like automatic writing, but with my art, I have a different kind of relationship with my art, I think, because I went to art school and honestly, I have not made a lot of art for myself in the last few years. I typically just do commissioned artwork. And so it's sort of like, that's just like another business that I have. So it's sort of like a means to an end. Honestly, I should be doing and I don't want to say should, because that's kind of like, there's so much shame around being like, I should be doing this, but
Yeah.
I would like to be doing more art for myself. It's just a matter of making it a priority and making it time.
Yeah.
I did have an experience maybe 6 years ago, which was probably the last time I made a big piece of art for myself, where I finished it and I was like, I can't believe this just came out of me. I've never done something this good. And
Mm.
it's not something I normally make. And it was it was a woman sort of sitting in like a yoga position. And I did this whole like toroidal like pattern around her, kind of this like lotus thing. And I
Mm.
lost myself in doing all of these teeny tiny little sections of this like lotus flower, like toroidal pattern thing, and shading them all. And when I finished with it, I was just blown away by it. And
Wow.
um, it was funny because that was years before I got into energy healing. But I think that piece was like all about energy healing. And it was
Mm.
just that, to me, when I look back, I think that piece of artwork was a message in itself, like a message for me from my guides.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's cool kind of to think about art being that way. I think I'm typically doing really realistic stuff and not flowing as much as I normally, as I might in other different practices that I have. Yeah, it'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see kind of more how that would evolve if I focused on that.
Yeah. I mean, I relate to that because like writing for like a magazine and doing that kind of writing, it's like, it's not the same as when I'm just writing for fun. And like when I was like full time working for a magazine, I wasn't really spending a lot of time on the side writing because it just like it took up, even though they're like different kind of writing, it still was
Yeah.
like I need to have that energy to be able to do it.
Yeah, it takes
But
your creative energy, and then you're just like, I just drew, or like for me, it's like I just drew for like 4 or 5 hours. The last thing I want to go is draw more hours.
yeah. Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, I mean, I think creativity and just like doing those kinds of things, like it's definitely like we go through phases in our lives. Like sometimes you're creating all the time, and sometimes it's like not so much. And I think that's
Mhm.
okay too. Going back to taking care of your body and eating well, um, you know, what has your journey kind of been like lessening your environmental impact and really making that a priority in your life?
Yeah. That was a long journey too. I mean, I think it started, I was like 13 and I decided to go vegetarian. And so I think that was kind of where it started, because I was like, okay, I know this is good for me. I know this is good for the environment. I know it's good for animals. I care deeply about animals. I want to do what I can to, I don't know, just live my life in a way that's more aligned with my beliefs or my morals or whatever. So that was kind of where that started. And then I think over the years, it just sort of developed. Then I became vegan later on. And then I had like just a big interest in, just seeing the effect that climate change was having on the earth, and thinking, wow, like I have such a deep respect for the earth and I want to care for her. And I feel this deep desire to, I don't know, pay respect to the earth and give love to her and express my gratitude and make this a big priority. Like it was a big spiritual thing for me. And it just came from like this deep place of like love and admiration for the earth and gratitude for the earth. And so, I was like, okay, well, I know that there's things that I can do that will help me lessen my impact, and I can live in a way, again, this is more just about living in a way that aligns with my beliefs and my values and my morals and all that kind of stuff. So I just really slowly started to just look into ways that I could lessen my impact, reduce waste, all that kind of stuff. And then I also like tried to share that journey because, if I can share what I've done and what works for me, then maybe that's going to encourage other people to do it. And that has a snowball effect too. So the biggest thing for me was, figuring out, okay, if I need to replace something, what is the most like eco-friendly option that I have? Or if I need to buy something new, what can I do? Or, something like that. So it just led me down a like kind of a path of, you know, doing research so that I could make more informed decisions about what I was purchasing. So like, okay, I'm about to run out of trash bags. Is there a more eco-friendly option for trash bags? Turns out there is. You can get biodegradable trash bags. You know, thinking, okay, what do I do with all my food waste? I cook so much. Okay, well, I could get a compost service because back when I lived in the city, I didn't have room to compost. So I had a composting service. Now that I don't live in the city, I don't have I can have a compost pile. So I have a compost pile, and I got this like food cycler thing that like breaks down your food and dehydrates it. So it takes up less space because I just have a small yard. You know, looking at like bath products, like bathroom products or kitchen products. Okay, I need to replace this. Is there a better option or better company that I could purchase from? Is there something that I could reuse, like different jars? Or could this old towel that I have that's like really ratty and looks horrible, could I cut this into rags and use it that way? Old clothes, you know, like trying to find ways to reuse the things that I can, and lessen the amount of stuff that I am throwing out. And then when I do need to buy new, looking into the best option for that and moving forward that way. And I think, you know, long term, I have really big goals. Like I want to, like you were mentioning having a love for gardening and then wanting to grow your own food. Like I really have a huge goal of wanting to grow my own food one day. You know, having a home that is like off grid or totally run on sustainable resources, like solar and rainwater catch and all that kind of stuff. You know, so I have kind of bigger goals, but I think my thing now is just doing, and it's always been just doing what I can and setting a good example for other people too. So that's just kind of been my thing the whole time. And yeah, that really ties into, like I was mentioning, just my belief system and my morals and how I feel about the earth. It's like, I want to do everything that I can to live in harmony with the earth and reduce my impact, because that makes me feel more connected and like I am living in a more responsible way and like kind of a better relationship with the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think the earth is really the greatest teacher. Like, you know, if we really take the time to learn, especially like all of the plants that are just naturally growing where we live. And like the same thing, like growing up in a city, it's like there's so much here that's planted that's not from here originally. Like there's so many invasive species and like that too. So it's hard to, I don't know, I feel like we're really disconnected from the earth here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And I think it's, you know, really like gardening and growing your own plants. Like I've heard them say many times, like growing your own garden is one of the most radical things you can do. Cause, you know, you're not supporting like the mainstream food industry, which is huge. And then you're also, especially like getting involved with the community with it. Like, you know, you can all be growing stuff for each other and it can be like, you know, we can trade with each other and all that stuff. So I think that's just what I hope that we are continuing to move in that direction. And, you know, like there's more and more community gardens popping up, more and more people. Like I have new neighbors that just started like a huge garden in their backyard. So I think people, you know, I think we're starting to go in the right direction for that. I like to hope.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And, you know, the other thing is too, it's like, even if you can't afford to make different changes, you can still reuse things and find new ways to utilize them. And also like voting for politicians that are, you know, believe in climate change and are like going to, you know, work on making changes, and like voting with your dollar too, like choosing the companies that you buy from, like all that stuff does make a difference. It adds up. I mean, it's hard too, because it's like, we don't want to, like, we have our own personal responsibility, but so much of it is like big corporations that are the issue. And so it's like, it's so much bigger than like just the little things that we do, but they still make a difference as well. And then the more people that are kind of living a different type of lifestyle, quote unquote, are like, the more people that do that, the more it's going to influence others, and the more it becomes mainstream, the cheaper everything gets, the more that we're pushing for renewable energy, all that kind of stuff. It just has that kind of snowball effect.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, I don't know. I think things might get a little bit crazier before it gets better.
I'm sure people need to feel like they're going to die before they make a difference.
Yeah. Uh,
Hopefully it's not too late. It might already be too late. I don't know. I try not to like get too hung up on that because then I just get really depressed.
I know. Well, I always like to think about the idea too. Like, even though we should be doing as much as we can within our own lives, like, I believe in the circle of life and that things are going to eventually, like,
Oh,
once
yeah.
humans are extinct and everything, like, things are going to have a way of coming back or new things are evolving. Like,
Yes.
plants
The
can
earth will
evolve.
always find her way.
Exactly. So, yeah, we'll see. Well, we probably won't see, but, like the future generations will bear the brunt of it. Well, anyway, I guess that covers everything. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. This was really awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Katie Emmitt, for being on the show. I will have her information in the description for the episode. I will also eventually put up the show notes on my website, 101waysofbeing.com. There you can also sign up for our newsletter, which will be sent out once a month. And if you want to find us on social media, it's 101 Ways of Being. And my name is Julia Schroeder. Thank you for tuning in today.